Miguel Solis, co-chair of the Dallas ISD 2026 Bond Campaign. Thank you so much and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Happy to be here, Jack, as always.
Happy to see you. So Dallas ISD has a really big bond, $6.2 billion. It may be the largest in school state history and maybe in all local governments. There are a lot of projects in here, 26 new schools, renovating and modernizing all campuses, removing the remaining 700 portables, security upgrades, furniture upgrades, upgrades to the phys ed facilities, repairing swimming pools, new buses, and did I miss anything? New technology.
That's right.
So that's a long list, big price tag. Why is this needed and why now?
Well, we'll take a step back for a second. This is the culmination of over 10 years of a renaissance that has been happening in Dallas ISD. From an academic standpoint, Dallas ISD is one of the fastest improving large urban school systems, not just in the state, but in the nation. And over the course of that time, they have been putting in the legwork to try to ensure that academic outcomes improve. And indeed, they have, quite substantially. Just this past year alone, they doubled the number of A-rated campuses. Over 70% of all Dallas ISD campuses are now rated A or B. Now, along the way, they also went out to the community and they said in 2015 and in 2020, would you bet on Dallas ISD by helping us pass 2 facility bonds? And in 2015 and in 2020, to the tune of a combined roughly $5 billion, about 1.7, 1.8 in 2015 and 3.4 billion in 2020. The voters injected that capital into facilities, and now Dallas ISD is a completely transformed district. But the job isn't done just yet.
And so is this list, I mean, because it's a lot of work, obviously, big price tag, is this to take Dallas ISD to the next step when it comes to student performance? There's always a lot of talk about spending. There's not as much talk about student performance.
That's
you
right.
talked about it. So is this you're saying if this passes, you're taking the student achievement and performance to the next level?
Absolutely. Not only does 21st century facilities in 21st century global economy, not only does that have an impact on academic outcomes, but more importantly, it has an impact on the broader economic outlook of our community. Because kids getting a high quality education in high quality facilities will inevitably lead to better economic outlook, because more kids will then be getting better grades that lead to better jobs and maximizes their earning potential. But
the workforce.
This is a workforce play as much as it is anything else. Now, let's take the size of the bond package for a second, because yeah, $6.2 billion, your eyes start to open up, but let's contextualize that. There are 135,000 students in Dallas ISD. That number alone is larger than most Texas cities outside of Dallas. When you really look at the population of our students, we're trying to finance the infrastructure of a very large subset of students. The district is just big. The other thing to note, though, is there's deferred maintenance that has been accumulating over a number of years. So even though Dallas ISD was successful in passing 2 bonds prior at, by the way, $0 tax increase, deferred maintenance continues to accumulate. And so what Dallas ISD is saying today is we want to try to basically get that number to 0 over the course of a 2026 bond, so that way the average facility age will come down to roughly 33 years, which is significantly lower than the average school age across the nation, and make sure that we have the right technology, that we have the right infrastructure that ensures that our kids can get a good education while also making sure that they're safe and secure, and put them on a path towards positive lifetime outcomes.
Now, this is going to come at a cost, right? Because people are going to pay an increase. I mean, it's 1 cent on the tax rate, right? So, I mean, this comes at a time of affordability is a very big issue. Property taxes are high, as we know. The state has tried to bring school property taxes down. So what's your argument? Why is this well worth it?
Anytime we're talking about people's taxes, that is a conversation that you have to take extremely seriously. Dallas ISD has indeed done just that. It's also important to take a step back first before we even get to a 1-cent tax increase. The 2015 bond and the 2020 bond, both of those were at 0 tax increase. And as a result of that and the financial stewardship of the district, the actual tax rate in Dallas ISD since 2019 has gone down. Dallas ISD, when you look at the 10 largest districts in North Texas, it's actually got the lowest tax rate. What you didn't hear me say is taxpayers may feel that low tax rate. That's because property tax values are rising. But Dallas ISD has been lowering the tax rate over the course of that time. That only gets the district, though, so far. To be able to ensure once and for all that every student and every school across Dallas ISD can have physical infrastructure improvements, this bond will allow the district to do just that.
And because we've heard about deferred maintenance at the city of Dallas, but as far as deferred maintenance on campuses, is that something that just can't be done as well or as quickly if you're just doing it off of your regular operations?
That's exactly right. The general operating fund of Dallas ISD would have to quadruple almost to be able to just take care of all of the deferred maintenance and the facility needs across the district. And so what they've been working on doing since roughly 2013 was something called the Bridge Plan, was to cast a vision and say at some point down the road, if our voters will support bonds, we will work towards essentially eliminating that deferred maintenance. The 2026 bond is basically the capstone project that will allow that vision, which manifests over a decade ago, to happen, and to do it at a tax rate that Dallas ISD thinks the voters can handle. So what does 1 cent actually mean? To the average voter, to the average homeowner, that's probably about $2.79. That's a month. That's roughly $33 over the course of the year. If you're 65 and up with homestead, it's essentially still $0. The average cup of a coffee today in America is a little more than $3. So Dallas ISD is saying we think that voters, recognizing the improvements in Dallas ISD, are going to be willing to make that investment, because that investment is a positive investment for today and for tomorrow.
What about the district's debt? I was reading the Texas Public Policy Foundation says if this is approved, it could double the district's debt. Is that true?
When you look at long-term debt, you go back again to 2015. Anytime you issue a bond, you're essentially issuing debt. And that debt can extend out over the course of multiple years. The 2015 bonds, over the course of, I'd like to think, maybe the next 5 or 10 years, we will probably see that debt ultimately paid off. The 2020 bond, that debt will extend, and the 2026 bond will extend it even more, but at a rate, again, that Dallas ISD feels pretty confident it has the ability to be able to manage. And it should be noted that they have managed pretty well the debt that has been issued all the way back to 2015. But anybody that's paying attention to the financial health of the district should have a question as to whether or not the district can ultimately service this debt in an effective way. I'd make the argument that the answer to that question has already been answered. It's yes, because of how well they have financed their construction.
Now, you talked about 2015, you talked about the 2020 bonds. Are those paid off?
So both the 2015 and the 2020 bond, the 2015 bond from a construction standpoint is completely finished. The 2020 bond from a construction standpoint will be finished in the next, I think by 2028. From a financing standpoint, those bonds will continue to be paid off for some number of years. It's important, though, for the viewers to understand there are long-term implications to issuing debt and not issuing debt. The deferred maintenance that continues to compound will cost taxpayers dollars as well. And in fact, those dollars over the course of time very well could exceed any debt that is issued over the course of time, because it's just you're passing the buck on to the next taxpayer. A great example of what that ends up looking like is the conversation we're having about City Hall today. That's a ton of deferred maintenance that was not taken care of, And as a result, we have the issues that we've got today.
So let me talk to you about timing again, because this comes at a time, a year before state lawmakers they may crack down on the ability for local school districts and other government entities to, pass these kinds of measures, or at least crack down on spending, because property taxes keep going up, aside from home values, et cetera. And so I'm wondering, is this being done to try to beat that deadline?
No, again, I'm a former school board member. I'm not a current school board member, but it's important for the viewers to understand, when I was on the school board, going all the way back to 2013, we cast a long vision. It was called the Long Range Master Planning for our facilities. And we said, if roughly every 5 years, we could go back to the voters, and if they would allow it, we would have the ability to be able to take a large portion of that deferred maintenance and address that by some point in time, we will have done enough where we can say every student and every school will have been positively impacted by public dollars into those facilities. This is the tail end of that grand plan that we had. It just so happens that it is also coming at a time where property tax reform is the #1 campaign issue. Now, it's important to note that if something like this were not to pass, and were any of that property tax reform to happen during the next legislative session, that it could impede the district's ability to go back to the voters and to ask them for an investment in physical infrastructure. But as far as the calculation is concerned, I would be speaking out of turn if I said that was what the district was calculating around. It just so happens that this conversation is happening at the point in time where this long-range master plan would complete itself.
I also wanted to ask you what we're seeing now, that the state is trying to stand up this school choice program, allowing students to use tax dollars to attend private school. So there's going to be some competition for the students. And I'm wondering, is that part of this equation too, when you look long term, as you suggested this plan was? Because in Dallas, you're competing against other school districts, whether next door, Richardson,
right,
et cetera, or even global, a little more globally, you got the suburbs, right? People may decide, hey, it's better for us to move to the suburbs, et cetera. How much does this do as far as keeping the district competitive with the other school districts? Because that's what's really going on here too, right?
Well, I can tell you, I do know that has been a factor to an extent as to how this administration has been thinking about this bond, but it's not a novel factor. Again, in 2015 and in 2020, those are conversations that we had as a board. And when we recognize now with ESAs being a thing, that competition, to your point, has now expanded. What I can tell you is, first, there is a growing belief in this community that the public school system is not only getting better, and that's empirically provable, but that it's a place where you can trust your kid is going to get as good an education as any other system, charter, private, or now ESA funded. And what we're seeing as a result of even the 2020 bond, as it has been built out, campuses that were some of the newer campuses that were built, I'll give you 2 examples. Geneva Heights, and around the M Streets in East Dallas, and South Oak Cliff High School down in South Oak Cliff. Since those facilities have essentially been rehabilitated to look brand new, they have seen enrollment increases. And so there is a theory here that an improvement and curb appeal mixed with an improvement of academic outcomes is a winning equation to winning students back. It's also, though, not lost on the district that the total enrollment in education, not just in Dallas, but across the nation in public schools, is beginning to decline. There are factors related to that, including, frankly, just the birth rate. And so that makes the competition even more important, and for districts like Dallas ISD to do the very thing they're doing right now, which is asking voters to make sure every student and every school have the facilities that they deserve.
Miguel Solis, co-chair of the Dallas ISD 2026 bond package and former Dallas ISD school board member. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.